I don't remember his name, but he pretty much stalked me for over a year. We'll call him Jose. I was 14 or 15 years old at the time. We had just gotten internet at my house. I was pretty excited. I tried this website where you can post and make comments, pretty much like Reddit, just way smaller. Most of the people in this website were from my own city or at least my same country. So I met plenty of nice people on there. The site had a chat service and I talked to those friends that I made on this website on a daily basis. There were obviously some creeps out there, but where they usually get banned right away. After a few months, though, I started receiving messages from someone I didn't even know. There was nothing creepy about the messages, though, but it seemed too pushy and asked for personal information like, hey, what's your address, and such stuff, so I just blocked them like normal. A few days later, though, I received a message from the AOL Messenger from an unknown sender, which was weird, but I responded since every day more and more my classmates were getting internet access. We started talking, and he told me he was from the website I had previously mentioned, or that I was also on from before. So I didn't think much of it, and I kept talking. When I realized it was the same dude that was asking personal questions of me, I blocked him and I went on my day without worrying about a thing. Fast forward a few weeks though, and I started receiving phone calls to my cell phone from a T Jose. He said he was one of my friend's cousins and that he saw me at a party and asked for my number. At that time, I didn't connect the dots and thought nothing of it. We really just chatted. Nothing weird about it. I started to get creeped out though when I asked my friend why he gave away my number without asking me first, and she said that she didn't do a damn thing, or that she didn't know any cousins called Jose. I asked my other friends because I thought maybe I got confused, but they gave the same answers, so I proceeded to hang up every time he called. For a few days this worked, but then he started to call my home number. He called me like 15 times a day, and every time was just small talk. I really don't know why I didn't do anything about it or tell my parents. They knew someone called me many times a day and just assumed it was a friend. After months of talking every day, I noticed he knew all my friends' names, my address, my school address, and all sorts of personal details. Still didn't do much since he never even tried to invite me out. Mostly he would just talk about his day, and sometimes he cried because he didn't have any friends. Thinking about it now, maybe he was even suicidal, and I kind of felt bad, albeit at the time. I just kept answering every time he called and just letting him speak. He never asked much and talked about himself. I got used to him calling several times a day and every day and getting angry if I was outside because he knew I wouldn't answer my phone. Only twice a day. Only twice he told me he saw me outside my house and described my clothes. Once he even got mad because I didn't say hi to him on the street, but I didn't even know he looked how he was supposed to look. I didn't know what he looked like. And I never saw anyone weird standing outside my house to say hi to. At some point, I changed schools and met someone I liked, we started dating, Jose was jealous and angry because I wasn't at home so often as before, but eventually he just called less and less until I never received any more calls from him. By that time, I was 16 and I never knew who he really was or how he seemed to know everything about me. Hi, my name is Ferris. I'm a 17-year-old trans boy. This story has multiple parts to it, so keep that in mind. The first part about the story is it started back in the 7th grade. I was only 12 or 13 at the time. I had a best friend named Jackie at the time. We grew apart after 7th grade when she had to move to a charter school 30 minutes away from our old school. And there was this kid named Alan. He was obviously a little, well, off. And we all knew he had some form of autism, which was practically normal at the time. He was nice at first. He would see me around school one way or say something casual. Hey, dead name. I thought it was pretty creepy, albeit chilly at the time. I was always nice because I was never raised to be a douche or to be mean to special education kids. Alan told me that he didn't have many friends, and I promised that I would be his friend. He also didn't talk much verbally, but he was obviously, well, it was obvious that he didn't really know how to express most things in words. He went on to say he was much better at typing. Fast forward to a week into this closer form of friendship, he texted me on Instagram asking, hey, what are you doing? I replied with, nothing. I'm just laying in bed. It's late, I'm going to bed soon. I remember he took a little time to respond after that, but about 25 minutes later he texted me again right as I was falling asleep with, I'm so horny right now. I'm thinking about Jackie right now. Her thin body and her nice everything. I didn't know how to respond. It made me very uncomfortable that he was telling me that he wanted to have something I'm not gonna say with a 12-year-old, with my 12-year-old friend in him. At the time, 13, in 7th grade. I told him that I was uncomfortable talking about all this, and I'd like for him to stop. And Alan continued to tell me that he would like to F her harshly. And even if she were to tell me she didn't want me, I would F her till she was screaming for me to stop. I was terrified that this kid, who came off as a very nice and somewhat creepily funny, would threaten to grape my best friend. After that, I took a screenshot that is sadly on my own phone that broke, and I never transferred any of the photos or contacts to my new phone. I sent the screenshot to Jackie and she replied to me, what the actual F? Block him. So I did, as she said. But before I had blocked him, he had continued to talk about brutally doing stuff to my friend. And I at that point was blazing with anger, so I told him, why don't you go F yourself and cut off your own balls, you disgusting a-hole. Then I blocked him. But it didn't end there. I never told my mom because she's the type of person to go through my whole phone in 7th grade. In 7th grade, me liked my privacy. I also knew that the severity of this and didn't do anything about it now. I'm very guilty that I could have stopped his actions sooner. The next day I had to go to school and I had classes with him. Immediately when I walked to my occasional waiting spot that I would sit at in the morning, he saw me, but I didn't see him. He came charging at me from behind and tried to grab my shoulder. But I heard him charging at me and I turned around and shouted, "Don't you fucking touch me." Then ran off. I ran into a group of people I had known and told them everything that had happened, and they told me to stay with them till class started. But the whole time I sat with them, he stared directly at me, occasionally looking away, and then he would stare directly into my bloody soul. I could feel him staring back at the back of my head. It felt like an angry stare. After that, he never came up to me again for the rest of the school year. But he would stare at me and follow me everywhere after that. I've also had to block his number, multiple of his Instagrams so many bloody times. And his Snapchat accounts, I had to block those too, when I actually had the app. But it doesn't in there. Ever since then, I have held a grudge against him and have never forgiven him just because he was a special needs. Doesn't mean he can act and talk to young girls like that, causing Jackie and I trauma that we still talk about with each other today when we actually speak. We aren't that close, but we did reconnect as friends all through high school. Alan had followed me in person and tried to follow me by making new accounts on social media. Alan went as far as sending me messages from fake Google numbers and emails I didn't even know. I would just block them all and forget about them. But I know he would always watch me at school, but I started to brush it off. It became a normal thing and I just didn't worry about him as much as I used to. During COVID, I had forgotten because I didn't even know he even actually existed anymore. Junior year started and I was doing online school until my mom forced me to go to actual in-person school, which I hated, but I fought with her. In OFC, I lost the argument. So I went to in-person school. I was also still in the closet about being trans, so I hated the misgendering and dead naming. I go to my dead classes, which maybe I have 3 to 6 kids I didn't even know in there. I mainly just watched YouTube videos and did my work since there was nothing else to do. But it came time in the 4th period that I had theater, and that year the teacher absolutely hated me. She would tell me, "You have natural talent," would be mean and awful to me the next second she gets a goddamn chance. But I sat there waiting for class to start, and Alan walks through the door, and I was immediately uncomfortable when I saw him, and I'm just happy he sat on the other side of the room from me, but I could feel him staring at the back of my head like a frickin' hawk. It was as if he was burning 2 eye holes into the back of my skull. He went on to do this for the whole entire semester. I would try to brush it off, but it would be so bloody annoying me. So I would just stare right back at him so intensely and would snap at him and ask the occasional, "What the fuck are you staring at?" I would try to show my true psycho parts when he would do anything. I would use that tough attitude of, "I'm scary, fear me," so he wouldn't come near me. But after half of the semester goes by, I get a message from my new Instagram where I have all my information as my new name, all of my cosplay photos on, and he messages me saying, "Have we met before?" I said, "Nope, no, now stop." With the hand emoji and the teeth together emoji. Then after I had said that he waited over a month and I had to ask me how Jackie was, then messaged me again after another month to say, "I love Jackie still." I was creeped out because it had been almost 5 freaking years since he had said anything like that, and was still being very creepy to that day. And saying he loves someone he hasn't seen in 5 years. She has changed a lot of personality wise. Still the same Jackie to me, but completely different with other people. Moving to senior year, I'm only came out to certain people and friends because I'm very afraid of people and them judging me. It's been a weird year so far, but he was once again in another one of my classes. I obviously wasn't happy about this, but I thought I could handle this only a semester more, and I have other friends in here. So I've stayed in the class. But earlier this week, he started getting really ballsy and walking straight up to me, getting very uncomfortably close, with only about 9 inches away from my face. And then moving around to try to block the way I'm walking, then jumped out of the way. He started doing this 2 weeks ago, but that time it was very too close for comfort, and I was then very angry and started cussing him out, telling him all this crap. And I told him, if you were to walk in front of me again, I was gonna snap your bloody neck. Albeit that was a threat. Clearly it was a bluff to get him to leave me alone, but obviously wasn't going to stop his staring or his following from a distance, as he'd done it for many years. But the next day, I didn't see him in first period, so I was very relieved because I was like very paranoid that wouldn't kick in, because me having an anxiety attack was the baddest thing to have. I turned to my friend Penelope and started saying how I was happy he wasn't here today, or at least in the class period, and her and I had met in the class and had become slightly close. She looked at me in a concerned way and said, "You have that problem too." After that, I asked her if she had any problems with him. She went on to tell me when she was a freshman, he had followed her around and even gave her the old waves and fist bumps and highs. Then he even found out her name, her Instagram account, her phone number in a matter of a month. He was apparently stalking her and several of her close friends as well, alongside with a sophomore girl in my fourth period art class. I know her family and her brother for years. She was 14 at the time of him asking her for private pics that no one wants to see. He was 18 at the time, asking her CP pictures. He even came to the door of my fourth period to wave at this freshly 15-year-old, and he asked for photos. Her and I had decided that this had been enough, and we went to the counselor's office with 7 other girls who had been stalked by this dude and other issues with him, and we all reported him. The counselor barely let me talk, even though I was the one who had dealt with this for like 5 years now. She really made me angry because she made me feel as if I was invalidated. But we all did turn him in. The past 2 days, he hasn't been at school, and administration is looking for him. I wonder if he knows. I will update soon on what happens to him, if anything at all. I know I shouldn't have brushed this kid off for years, and it was a mistake on my part. Last summer, I met a guy called Michael through an online dating app, which was Tinder. He was lovely at first, very charming and funny, actually. We ended up going on a few dates to some local cafes and bars that actually went really well. But at one point, he started getting really possessive over me, acting like I was his girlfriend. He was getting really jealous and stuff. At one point, I got text messages from Michael asking me a bunch of guys were that I was friends with on Facebook. I told him the truth that they were just old school friends or people I knew through work. But this didn't satisfy him at all, and he demanded that I unfriend him. Obviously, I told him that I wasn't going to do that. And he was really unfair about him. You know, well, it was really unfair of Michael to ask me to do something like that, especially considering we hadn't even been dating all that long. That's when he started getting really abusive and paranoid. He was really convinced I was dating other people on the side and that I was just using him for free drinks and food. And that was just a ridiculous accusation on its own, as I always made a point of splitting bills with him. I work, I'm independent, and I don't need a man to pay for things for me. Eventually, I got really sick of the way he was acting. I told him I didn't want to see him anymore. But he kept trying to contact me. At first, he told me he was sorry and that the past relationships had ended badly with infidelity and stuff like that, which was why he acted so paranoid over things like that. But I made my mind up and I couldn't go out with someone like that. And a friend of mine had made a good point that if he acted like that once, he was bound to do it again at some point. I asked him to leave me alone, but he wouldn't. So I ended up blocking his number on WhatsApp, as well as blocking him from actually calling me entirely. But his attempts to contact me didn't stop there. He actually used every means he could find. Eventually, he got a hold of me through my work email. It started sending me messages there too. I couldn't change my work email, but I couldn't block the sender yet. And I could block him though, but even that didn't stop him. He made a brand new email address for every email he sent me. I had to block him on Facebook too. I had to block him on Instagram and every other social media platform I could think of. I was bombarded with messages and some of them were really frightening. At one point, he even managed to get a hold of my PayPal username and sent me payment requests for money he said I owed him for drinks and food we had on our dates. He threatened to kill himself if I didn't get in touch, and sometimes he threatened to hurt me too. Some of the messages were really graphic too, where he would describe ways in which he was going to take his own life or take mine. He was obviously putting a lot of real freaking thought into it, and that's what gave me sleepless nightmares and nights. But I think the worst part of this was that he kept getting in touch with friends and colleagues of mine, even family members, and trying to tell them what a terrible person I was and how he was going to hurt me if they didn't get me to respond to his messages. In total, I received over 4,000 emails, over 400 phone calls, and 100 of messages from this dude. I had to change my whole life to ensure that my children and I were kept safe throughout this whole bloody ordeal. I still have to maintain this. My life will never be the same again, but I keep a lot of the messages handy so that when I finally broke and contacted the police, I have a shed load of evidence on hand to show them. This was all they needed to arrest him. Michael was sentenced 12 weeks in jail, suspended for a year after pleading guilty to stalking at Liverpool Crown Court. He was handed a 5-year restraining order which stopped him from contacting me. I also finally feel like I've had some justice regarding the whole thing. He may not be going to prison for the things he done, but he certainly ain't in a position now where he even does carry on stalking me. He will be put away, which frankly is where people like that belong. If there are any women reading this who are going through a similar thing, please be brave and keep hold of some of the messages for evidence. It's the only way to prove that it's happening and the way the police will actually do anything about it.